Welcome to 359. I'm Joni Salzman.
David Katzmaier.
Is joining us too. So, Katzmaier, you are our television guru, and you recently updated your advice about cutting the cord. It's never been more viable to cut the cord, but that doesn't mean that it's easy or simple. What's kind of the most important thing that you think people should consider when they're thinking about getting out of a regular pay TV subscription?
Yeah, I mean, that's the real thing. It's like if you've never had cable, then it's easy. You know what you're getting. But if you're one of these people that decided, hey, I've had cable for a long time. I got a DVR. I'm used to these kinds of things. When you go to, get rid of it, you're going to be losing some stuff. So the main thing to consider is the money you're going to save. If you have just internet versus your bundle versus your packaging. I always tell people, try to negotiate with your cable company. Call them up, or if there's a couple in your neighborhood, if you're lucky enough to have some competition, call them up and be like, hey, dude, I'm quitting cable. Can you cut me a deal, basically?
So the best way in that sense to cut the cord is to not cut the cord?
Well, let's say they can't match your price, because this is
Right.
one of the things to consider. Then you go, okay, fine, time to cut the cord. Then you can consider one of these live TV streaming services, or you can put up an antenna. Those are the two best ways to get sort of the replacement for cable. The other thing is if you're a sports lover, make sure that, this particular team that you follow is going to be available. That's really the main thing that keeps a lot of people on cable is these regional sports networks where the only way to get it is if you have your cable subscription. But a lot of new live TV streaming services like Fubo TV, like YouTube TV actually do have these RSNs now. So they actually allow you to go ahead and do that. It's really cool.
What about beyond live TV stuff that you'll be losing? What about on-demand things? Do you think that there's ways that people can cobble together a package that works for them?
Yes. I feel like, Hulu is your friend. If you really like to use a lot of on-demand Hulu, which, just the basic service has a tremendous amount of stuff available on demand. Really, if you're watching on demand, cable is the worst way to do it. I mean, between Netflix, Hulu, and even the network apps, if you want to go that deep, available on any of these devices, you can get a lot of stuff available immediately to stream, and you don't have to worry about a cable subscription to do that.
What about people? Part of the problem with cutting the cord is that it's so hard to figure out what it is, how you can get those things that you want, because everybody is an individual. They all have different tastes and priorities. What do you recommend for people who may not know about things that are available to them? Is there anything out there that people might not be aware that they could try?
Yeah, the easiest thing is to just sit down and write down your list of must-have shows. And it's a lot harder if you have a family. Everybody has to be considered. And figure out which shows you can live with, what shows you can live without, which networks they're on. It takes a little bit of work, but then once you have that list, the internet is your friend. And at CNET, for example, we have a whole list of, for example, all the various channels carried on each of these live TV services, whether they're actually available in your area. For example, ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox are only available in, most of these metropolitan areas. If you live a little bit further away from the city, you might not be able to get them. So, those sorts of things you're going to have to figure out on your own. Or again, if you want to put up an antenna, that's a whole other thing. And that's a great way to save a lot of money on your cable subscription, is to put up an antenna, see what you get. Because they're cheap. You can connect it to your TV right now and just kind of experiment.
So, moving on. Do you remember that Marriott hotel chain cyber attack from a few weeks ago? Well, it turns out that it may have been bigger and more insidious than we thought. There's a report about an investigation into that attack that appears to indicate it's part of a wider Chinese spying effort. David, have all these cyber attacks, have they changed at all how you consider your own digital profile's exposure?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I do have a monitoring service, and I get a lot more emails, about this. So I actually got the little alert, about Marriott, and that bothers me. But it's one of these things where, it's just around all the time. And it kind of doesn't surprise me that, China's behind this, or, North Korea's behind that, or whatever. Like, it's become weaponized, and, it's a little bit scary, but I feel like as long as you're smart, I use like a password protection service, for example, LastPass. If you use one of these things, you're taking steps in the right direction. I think credit monitoring is also a really good thing, especially if you have some credit to protect.
Then quickly, there's also a story out from our Stephen Shanklin. It's about Intel with a new type of breakthrough 3D chip stacking called Foveros. The idea is that it'll bring a kind of processing that previously is used for artificial intelligence and machine learning, but has been really expensive, make it much more affordable. And that means there might be a reason for you to upgrade your PC in the next couple of years. You can check out that story and all the rest at CNET.com. I'm Joni Salzman.
I'm David Katzmaier.
Thanks for listening.
Wow, chips, AI. I love it.
That and 5G. Although on this podcast, 5G is.
You know, speaking of the chips, I was just threatening last episode to replace everybody on the show with AI bots that I build myself. So you can stand by for that and look forward
I'm
to that in
going to be very
2019.
scared if you build an AI bot of me.
Would you be surprised? Let's be honest here for a second.
I want natural intelligence, darn it. This artificial intelligence doesn't cut it anymore. I want the full flavor.
I don't know. Natural intelligence on this show usually ends up with me screwing up something or Ben completely botching the intro. So just putting that out there. Everybody, it's time to go ahead and send in your questions and comments. Some of you already have been, so thank you for that. Let's keep this conversation going. Let's start off going right back to the beginning and talking a little bit more about cutting the cord. Now, I'm a big proponent of it, have been for a long time. Let's talk about what services we personally subscribe to and why, maybe to kind of set this stage. The first one I signed up for was Netflix. I was a very early adopter. I was excited about that. Jumped on the Hulu train shortly after that. Presently, I am experimenting with CBS All Access, and I recently got the DC Universe app that was actually gifted to me for participating in New York Comic Con this year, which was an excellent, wonderful gift. Thank you, WB, DC, etc. It's been pleasant so far. What about you guys? What are you using these days?
Well,
Amazon Prime too for me.
Cats, you try everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at home right now we're on YouTube TV because we are a post-cable household. And it was a long, hard transition, as maybe you can tell from that article we were talking about earlier. I started in, probably 8 years ago climbing on the roof with an antenna and realizing I couldn't get anything. But yeah, YouTube TV has been great. But I can't watch the Knicks, for example, on YouTube TV. So, if I want to, I would subscribe to DirecTV Now, which has that channel. So it's interesting. Like I would probably, if the Knicks are really good and I really wanted to watch them this year, I would trade, my YouTube TV, which I think I like the interface and the DVR better, for DirecTV Now because it has that channel. It's one of these things where you have to make these kind of changes. And
but part of this new world of over the top streaming television is that, unlike with your cable subscription, it's really easy to just switch from YouTube TV to DirecTV Now. It's not like you're in a contract. You can just stop and go to the other one and then go back to the other one when the next season is over.
Yeah. It's and you can do the same thing with shows, which a lot of people do with HBO, for example. And I'm sure their subscription is going to go through the roof once Game of Thrones starts up again, that sort of thing. Following these things around is really cool and really freeing. And we tried around. We played around with PlayStation Vue, for example. My wife didn't like the interface. I was kind of used to it. We tried Sling TV. My sister's using Sling TV, for example, because they watch a lot of soccer and a lot of sports that are on there. And they prefer obviously paying $15 less a month for that. So yeah, there's so many different ways you can do it. And then the on-demand stuff we were talking before. That's just live TV. And for the most part, our family, we watch Netflix, we watch Amazon. We do watch some Hulu as well, so those three are kind of must-haves. Beyond this live TV stuff. So yeah, the bill at the end of the day, we're not saving that much. But I love what you talked about, the fact that you don't have a contract, you can just change out whenever you want. I feel like even if the price is the same, it's almost worth it to do that.
And you don't have to worry about, even if the price is the same now, you don't have to worry about when that contract expires. It's going to be going up 20%.
Yeah.
There's not going to, and you don't have to worry about these installations, be there for a window between 3 p.m. and 8 p.m. for us to come out to your house. And there's product benefits to cutting the cord beyond just the content and the price.
Yeah. And I mean, we're having these conversations at the holidays, for example. I have my relatives coming and being like, oh, I'm sick of paying, whatever it is. And they're always paying crazy amount. How can you possibly pay $180 a month for TV and internet? But, they do. And those guys are prime candidates for once they get over the little bit of a learning curve and figure out that they can do this stuff. And I'm generally helping them with that, And I've gotten some really, good, results from people, again, once they can get their sports teams, basically. So.
Yeah. Sports are clutch.
It's an experiment in control, really. At least it was for me. I got a lot of my family gifts of Netflix subscriptions early on just to kind of get them on that train. And now picking them up things like Rokus and Fire Sticks and et cetera to keep the hardware warm. Like you said, you're really not changing the bill that much. And with so many more places going independent a la carte. Like Disney's going to be launching their own service right now,
Yeah.
which means that all those Marvel properties on Netflix are probably going to migrate in some fashion.
They're disappearing.
Well, we might not lose
Yeah.
all of them, but a large theory is that the Defenders series is going to find a new home on Disney Plus, whatever they're calling it now. So
Yeah.
at that point, you're paying $8 for that, $8 for that, $10 for that, $6 for that one, and it's going to pile up. But what you're paying for now, instead of the sheer volume and capacity of continuous broadcast content, which may or may not appease your tastes, you're paying for control of the a la carte on-demand service when you want it, how you want it.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents.
I want to talk a little about the antenna thing too. I don't know if we have any questions on this, but the antenna aspect, if you can get these channels, is really cool.
Yeah.
One big gotcha about these live TV services is there's no PBS, for example. And my I got young kids. PBS is a must, and it's kind of awesome to have an antenna option. And
Yeah.
in New York, we get 40 channels. If
Yeah.
you put up an antenna.
Well,
And
if you don't live in the basement.
Yeah, you can get one of these live TV, a DVR even, to schedule recordings of stuff and basically pretend you have almost a cable subscription with these things. There's
Yeah.
a guide and all this stuff. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. I like it.
Over-the-air antennas are kind of like magic. It's like this magic that has existed since the dawn of time. And
Yeah.
we've gotten to this mindset of cable subscriptions and pay TV subscriptions that people forget that there's just television floating around
Yeah.
that you can grab and get for free.
And it's free.
And it's free.
It includes football. There we go.
That's very true. I have an antenna as well, but I live in a recessed apartment underground, so my signal's kind of
that's
lousy.
rough.
And I've tried getting creative with it too. I've tried attaching it to the pipes in my heating pipes in the apartment, try and get better reception reflected through that. It doesn't work. I'm not a scientist.
Yeah. And I can't use an antenna because I live there's too many trees and I'm kind of out, on Long Island. So I actually don't. There's one of the first things we tried. We could get 3 channels, and then they didn't come in, and then
Yeah.
we can go to the other one. And what about you, Joan? Can we go 0 for 3 here?
I don't have an antenna right
There we
now.
go.
Only because you're a cord cutter. I'm a cord never. I
Okay.
never really had cable in my adult life,
Yeah.
after I left my parents' house. And so I never acclimated myself to the idea that it's natural to watch TV in a linear
Yeah.
broadcast sort of way. I just have
Right.
always been watching stuff on demand. So I don't have one, but I think it's great for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense for a lot of people. If you really like that kind of watching things as they're broadcast over the air content, then it makes sense for you. I just don't have one because I'm one of those
News?
ones. I'm
What
one
do
of
you
those
do for
next
news?
waivers.
Do you just watch?
Oh, for live news?
Yeah.
I just watch online. I
Yeah.
watch apps. I'll just go to the CNN app
Yeah.
or on my. I use a Roku.
Yeah.
I'll go to the CNN app on my Roku. But when something's live and breaking, I usually am watching that stuff on my phone.
There you
I
go.
don't really keep it on my big TV and the main screen of the house, partly because I have young kids too.
Yeah.
And if something is a news event that I want to be keeping tabs on live, it's probably not something I want my kids to really be exposed to. It's probably something bad and disturbing.
Yeah. Internet works pretty good for news.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily need TV for that.
Yeah.
There's a lot more options floating out there now too. We talk news and sports. I, not pandering here, use the CBS All Access Sports to watch the Buffalo Bills.
Nice.
Also, there's stuff like Fubo floating out there now too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've been experimenting that. Did a trial with that. It works great. Sometimes the selection is limiting, but those things are made to grow and expand. So
Yeah, there's so many options. And just like Katz pointed out, there's so many options just in that live TV replicating a live channel experience. There's so many options in that now. Add on to that free apps and paid on demand subscriptions. It's just a lot.
Well,
to choose
is
from.
it going to start narrowing at some point, do you think, Joan? You track this
Yeah.
pretty closely. I mean, you've written a lot of stories about these kinds of things.
Yeah.
And I know that there's some perverse financial incentives going on too with these guys. I always talk about how, YouTube TV was a lost leader that was out for a while. These
Right.
guys, there's a lot of channels. They're charging a relatively small amount of money. Plus, we've had some price increases recently.
Yeah, so the price increases had an effect on, I know that Sling and DirecTV, they were having gangbusters growth in the first half of the year, and then they stopped having a lot of their promotions.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, lo and behold, their growth was and it was a huge steep drop off.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, you know, the way that we've talked about how, like, with on-demand paid apps, there's Netflix that almost everybody has. If you have one, you probably have that one. And then there's like 2 or 3 others
Right.
that you might subscribe to 1 or 2 of those. Pardon me. I think that might happen with the live TV streamers, that eventually there'll be like maybe 3 of the kind of all-purpose. We give you a giant collection, like a larger bundle that pulls out ahead, because people, I think, yeah, they, even though you can switch and hop between them, I think most people just don't want to have to do that.
Yeah,
Like,
they
I
want
don't-
to find the one they like and get a price that's reasonable for them, and then be like, all right, that's my TV thing.
Yeah, so I do think that a few are gonna pull ahead
Yeah.
from the pack. It'll be interesting to see which ones. I think it would be really interesting if like a Fubo or a Philo, which are the kind of independent, they're not owned by a gigantic corporation like DirecTV Now is, or like YouTube TV is, or Sling TV. It'll be interesting to see like if any of the small players are managed to become one of the dominant services. I think that'll be really interesting.
Yeah, they're both pretty niche. You know, it's like
Yeah.
Fubo's sports, and then Philo's no sports. You know?
Right.
and a third the price of Fubo, for example.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that there's way too many now, and it's super confusing.
It can
you
be
know?
really confusing, yeah.
And it's kind of like, how are they different? And especially since you can switch between them and everything.
And Katz didn't do justice to like when you said that you can go on CNET and find all the different channels that you can get on each one. That's because Katz has a gigantic Excel spreadsheet that he continually updates with
Not enough apparently, but yeah,
with like monk-like fastidiousness.
it's fun. It's one of my favorite things in the world.
Excel spreadsheets are fun.
I mean,
aren't
sharing
they?
it on Google Docs and having all these anonymous like lemurs and waddles.
Oh, do you make it available
yeah,
publicly?
Yeah. So
Oh,
you can
that's
have
fun.
aardvarks and everything like come in, because Google they'll put little animals on there to symbolize anonymousness, because it's just a weird Google thing.
That's
so,
interesting.
Yeah. So and it's fun to go on there and see like 150 other weird animals. Checking out whether you can get CBS in Des Moines. Yeah, it's pretty fun. But that's again, it's incomprehensible. Like there's
Yeah.
so much. You need a friggin' spreadsheet.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So we've covered so much ground, and specifically we've talked about all of the favorites. I'm going to go ahead and bring up your spreadsheet here and the listings, and it is bonkers.
That's not even the GDoc, dude.
No, I know,
Yeah.
know, but this is the one that people can see
Yeah.
on CNET. Just
Yeah.
search OTT, it'll turn right up.
Yeah.
But while we're looking at this, let's go ahead and take some commentary from the chat that
Yeah.
we've been neglecting. Lost
guys.
Legacy.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Lost Legacy points out we kind of forgot PlayStation View. We did bring up Sling TV, DirecTV Now, Watch TV, YouTube TV,
yeah,
and
Watch
Philo. One Soloic says, I'm paying $200 a month for Comcast Xfinity.
Yikes.
I want to cut the cord, but Comcast Xfinity is the only Wi-Fi provider in my area, and they say if I downgrade my service to Wi-Fi only, it's still going to be $89 a month. And that's the same problem I've kind of run into
Yeah.
with Time Warner, who's the only one in my area.
Yeah.
Matthew Datcher chimes in and says, my problem is that Comcast is the only internet provider in the area.
Yeah.
The price difference between Comcast internet only and TV plus internet is hardly anything. They really want you to stay loyal. And he says, I can't cut the cord until I have more choice in ISPs. So
Yep.
do we think this is going to kind of force that hand? Are we going to actually see more exposure for providers, or are they going to actually start to flux the market to kind of cater to this?
Well, so this is where programming providers, the options that you have for over-the-top programming stuff, the Sling TVs, the DirecTV Nows, that's not going to change whether or not you have choice in ISPs. And because cable companies have regional monopolies, they have local monopolies. So that's why there's only a Comcast in your area. That's why there's only a Charter in your area. That's why there's only Charter and Time Warner are the same thing now. But you get my drift. Like, that's the way that it was structured, that they would have local, regional monopolies in particular areas. And then as broadband became the default way that people get internet into their home, that meant that they had monopolies over, virtual monopolies over your internet service into your home too. So it has created this situation where they are able to take advantage of the fact that if you want to have a really good internet connection, most likely you only have one really good option. Maybe if you're lucky, you have a second decent option. And that means they can price those things so that it's like, yeah, you could stop getting our cable subscription and only go to internet. But why would you? Because we'll charge you so much for the internet alone
Yep.
that it only really makes sense for you to be getting internet and video and phone if they can throw that in too.
I feel like it's legitimately falsely inflating that market, that they're trying to make it sound like cable's still relevant when it's not.
Yeah, welcome to America.
I mean, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry,
Yeah.
that's how it's structured. The best way to fight that is to quit cable anyway.
Yeah.
Like that's what I did. So I'll just give you a quick story. We were paying like I think it was about $150, $160 a month for a triple play for Verizon in my area, which is phone, internet, and TV. And I called them up and did this little negotiation thing. And we actually have a competing provider in my area. So I was able to play them off of each other. But at the end of the day, I still needed phone for various reasons, plus internet. So I'm still paying about $100 a month for that.
Really?
Yeah. So it's not like I'm saving a massive amount. But as we were talking about before, to me, it's worth it to have the choice of these other services. By the way, even if I had TV, I'd still be Netflix, Amazon, Hulu.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
With all the original content now, especially.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. There's no way you can, to me at least, with our family, that we couldn't subscribe to those things, and we can turn them off occasionally. You know, if we're sick of them, but whatever, we usually come back again for original series or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Same thing with HBO. You know, right now we don't have it, but we're gonna come back to it probably. So you know, then there's the live TV service, which I guess kind of zeroes out that savings, but I can cancel at any time if you know money gets tight and I want to save you know whatever it is a month. I can cancel. You know,
Yeah.
those options are still there. So
Yeah.
if you're paying $200 a month, for example,
That's a lot.
I feel like you know as long as you're not missing any must-have channels, it's worth it to just try it. Go for the internet only or internet and phone if you need it.
And if you haven't tried doing the negotiating tactic, try
Yeah.
that too.
Yeah.
See if that works out.
Or-
Oh, they
just-
fold like paper.
Do it and then come back, or do it, hang up and ask for another representative. You know, and you can even Google how to negotiate with a cable company. There's some really good tactics out there for how to actually get that bill down, because everybody's following a script on the other end of the phone. They want to retain you as a customer, and especially if you have a second provider. Unfortunately, a lot of us are in these monopolies, but for example, where I am, there's Verizon and there's the cable company for Long Island. So those, you know, there's two guys that can play off against each other. So
And there's
whatever you
also
can do.
there's also like smaller companies that are trying to break down this ISP monopoly. Like there's Starry Internet. But the problem with there's people that are trying to do it via fiber. But the problem with this stuff is that it's really hard. There's a reason why these monopolies started. They were built, they were baked in, but there's a reason why they haven't really been broken by the free market. It's because it's hard to deliver internet service. 5G could change things a lot.
Just thinking.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Let's talk about 5G.
Oh my
Full
God,
cir- no,
it wouldn't be a
no,
PC Night podcast
no,
without talking about 5G.
Yes.
And I just want to say, so the premise of this whole conversation has been around reasons to cut the cord. But there are some people, you know, our listener mentioned X1. Paying $200 for X1 feels like a lot of money, but I will give Comcast some credit. X1 is a really advanced way to watch cable television. They've integrated a lot of things like Netflix, Amazon, YouTube, so that you don't. They have voice, so it like.
They also have decent customer service people. Novel idea.
Do they?
Better
Really?
Comcast is like.
Better than Time Warner.
Well,
Okay.
it's like battling
me.
for last place.
Right,
it's like
right.
they came in second to last.
Couldn't be any worse. That's all I'm saying. So here's some great conversation, interesting thoughts coming up out of what we're talking about right now. Brian Stone says, even if you do cut the cord, there's still going to be data caps you might have to deal with, especially if you're streaming to multiple TVs. So you got to be kind of choosy how this unfolds. Now, this is something I was actually thinking about last night when I was watching TV, and I kept having some buffering issues, which I think was probably just a loose off the cuff deal. But with the impending crunch with the loss of net neutrality and the increasing trend of higher quality content being pushed out in the form of 4K, have we backed ourselves into a corner here? Or are we going to see like a point where it's like, I've run out of TV shows on the first Tuesday of the month?
That's a good question.
I would say no. One of
Party
the
foul.
things, in general, first of all, those data caps are pretty high right now because you'd have to be competitive. What they will do though is to try and sell you a higher, speed or even a higher cap if you mention that you're going to be streaming and all that kind of thing. I would again try and start with the lowest you can, but yeah, there's definitely places where data caps are going to be an issue. But like for example, Netflix is a lot of bandwidth, but it's not that much. It's not like, downloading video games. It depends on how much you're watching
Yeah.
on these daily bases. So there's definitely some people who hit the cap, but you also got to change your habits. Sometimes, for example, people leave their TVs on. Hey, maybe you can turn off the TV, or better yet, turn off the streamer. Because if the streamer just keeps going in the background after you've turned off the TV and your Roku just keeps, sending out the TV signal to a blank TV, that's a bad thing.
Luckily,
So-
there's contingency plans in place more often now. Not perfect, but Netflix makes you question your character after you binge watch 7 episodes of The Office. Are you still there? It locks up.
Yep.
Eventually goes back to the home screen. Eventually that shuts off, and eventually the TV follows suit because the HDMI is like, well, you're gone.
Yeah, and some services, even Sling TV actually has a bandwidth cap. So you can go in there and say, hey, look, sir, show me a lower bandwidth version of the show, for example, or even warn me when these things are happening. So there are ways to deal with it, but it is an issue. I feel like it's still less of an issue. Hopefully, with net neutrality, it doesn't get worse.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. With net neutrality changing, there's the possibility that service providers could take advantage for their financial gain of that kind
Possibility.
of predicament. But I do think that there are ways that the programmers can counterbalance that. Like you said, there's ways to get, like, you can offer, like, as a programmer or somebody that's delivering, like the Netflixes can figure out ways to, like, let you know and give you options about what level of quality that you're streaming in.
Here's a relevant question from Joseph. In general, what is the recommended speed of internet to use for online streaming services for, like, Hulu without having to deal with buffering?
Ooh, tough one. So in general, 15 megabits per second, 15, not 50, is going to be fine.
And that's for HD 1080.
Yeah, and that's actually the recommended for 4K. So when I say fine, that's pretty damn good. The problem with that is that's, especially if you're not on Fios, if you're not on fiber optic connection, that number can go way down during peak hours, which is when everybody watches TV in your neighborhood. If you have cable, you're subject to the peak hour issue. And that number might not be constant in normal circumstances. So I would say that's kind of your baseline. A lot of guys are obviously 100, for example, megabits per second. That's crazy. I mean, again, if you have 5 people in your family all streaming at the same time, or a couple people doing video game downloads or playing live games at the same time, yeah, you're going to use that. But for a single stream, that's complete overkill. So you have to consider how many people are streaming at the same time, at what time, and usually in my experience, Fios is really good with maintaining that 15 megabits per second compared to something like a cable service where it'll dip and go down a lot.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, good thing we got Google Fiber coming. Oh, wait. We've talked about this before, Joan, but Efrain says the TV app commercials are repetitive and they drive me nuts. I never thought I would miss real commercials. Let's go ahead and unpack that one again, because what you told me last time was very informative, but still enraging.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That was fun because I got a chance to say, Brian, let me blow your mind.
You did.
So yes, I understand especially on ad-supported streaming services, lots of repetitive ads. Unfortunately, that's by design, not by the streaming service, but by advertisers. Advertising, since the dawn of television, has been based on this concept of repetitive impressions. And so when you're on TV, especially TV as it is now, there's just a lot more commercials in an hour of regular cable TV than there is on, like, say, if you have ad-supported Hulu subscription. If you watch YouTube, a lot fewer ads per hour on those services. But what that means is advertisers still want to have the same number of repetitions. So with fewer commercials, same amount of repetitions, you get a lot more repetitive ads. It's not like these services don't have a variety of marketers and advertisements to show you. It's that the advertisers specifically want to repeat them before your eyeballs over and over again. Which it's one of those things where advertising hasn't caught up to how viewing behaviors have totally changed, and it's making a less pleasurable experience because of it.
And in my opinion, I think your time is often worth it to subscribe to the ad-free version of Hulu, which we do, and I can't go back at this point, or even the ad-free version of CBS All Access, which again with these services offer an ad-free version for more money, and it's a couple bucks a month. I would strongly consider, say you guys should consider paying that, just because to not have ads is a wonderful experience. It frees up your time, and obviously this whole annoyance factor. If it's something you use a lot, it's totally worth it in my opinion.
Yeah.
I never minded ads as long as they were decent enough or got a cheap laugh out of them at the very least. You know,
Right.
Yeah.
you can try to sell me something. I don't mind. There's stuff out there I don't know about. But the sheer fact is they get to the end of a show on a Hulu, and I hate any given company because they have bought up every single spot in that show.
Yeah.
And out of spite, I refuse to participate in their commerce.
But the thing is, you probably remember those brands, even though if you spite them. Do you remember like what brands they were that?
No, I've erased them from my memory. I've Eternal Sunshine them because I hate them so much.
Nicely done.
Well, see, you are a special case in a lot in a lot of ways. You're a very special person.
But I get what you're saying, and I'm so glad that you able to actually explain that because I'm sitting here thinking like, my first thought was, is on-demand services, these streaming services, are they failing? Can they not
Right? Are
sell
they struggling
ad
to get
space?
advertisers? Why do they keep showing me the same one?
Exactly, but now
that's not the case.
That's
yeah.
really interesting.
Yeah.
Enraging, but interesting. All right, we're just about out of time. Let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room. Timothy, we're over here in 2018. He's living in 3018. Cable should have customers actually choose their channels in order to compete, not package deals, actually individual channels. True a la carte. Boy,
Yeah.
wouldn't that have been nice.
Well, people say that, but we kind of have an inkling of what true a la carte is like now, and it's more expensive. Like the thing about cable is that a $200 a month bill for Comcast is insane, but and granted, nobody watches all of the channels on their Comcast subscription, but a la carte channels, if you go beyond 5, like it's gonna add up. And the reason that you can't do that is because only like 9 companies own all the networks, and they force they're called MVPDs, your cable company, DirecTV, a satellite company, they're called MVPDs, and they force MVPDs to take the entire bundle of all of their channels, take it or leave it. Like you can't, well, let me think of one. Everybody's merging with everybody, so I can't remember which ones are actually. But like,
well, if you want the Discovery Channel, you got to get Discovery Life and Discovery Science
Yeah.
and blah 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 blah. And,
if you want ABC and Disney, you also have to have ESPN.
yeah, and Freeform.
Yeah.
Those types of things they're common, and that's like if you look at Sling TV, I think their marketing says it, but it's true. They're kind of as close as you can get right now in today's market to a la carte channels, and they have a really slim cable bundle or of channels that's $25 a month, and they do these little add-on things. Like if you want to get the kids package, for example, you get another 5 channels. So that's pretty close. I agree with Joan. I don't feel like it's going to be complete true a la carte, where maybe what are you going to pay $2 a month to get Nick Jr. Whatever it is per channel, because I don't think the economics really add up.
They would never. There's a reason why there isn't a $2 subscription to Nick Jr. It's because it's
5,
not. Yeah. Like it would have to be more than that. And so nickel and diming. That's why when Katz cuts the cord, nickel and diming, it's not all. You're not saving all that much money.
Yeah.
But
The experience
you're getting
is
other
better.
things out of it.
Yeah, and you look at like Philo, what is that? $15 a month, I think.
Yeah.
And they have like 40 odd channels in there, and a lot of them you've heard of and are quote unquote legacy good channels. And they're able to do it because they cut off the expensive channels because they don't have
No
Fox
sports,
News, they don't have
no news.
ESPN, they don't
Yeah.
have those types of channels cost a heck of a lot more for a provider. So they experimented with a package that does that, and it's pretty popular. Maybe people who don't care about sports and news but still want live TV on these services. So there's a lot of experimentation going on, a lot more than there ever was in the past. It's really cool that all these things are coming out, and the market is really heating up, and a lot of big players are trying to get into it and break this issue. And even the TV providers and the cable companies are seeing that the writing on the wall. You gotta figure out how to serve people.
Yeah.
I remember the ad. I remember the ad that set me off on Hulu.
Oh,
And
you do?
It was a Volkswagen ad. I don't know if anybody else recalls this. This was a while ago, maybe a year or two ago even. It was this ad, and it had this family, and it was a long one, too. It was like a 60-second. It was this family doing like a cross-country road trip in a Volkswagen vehicle. And they get to the end. They're like on this cliffside beach kind of thing. And you
Cliffside
realize
Beach?
that you
Awesome.
realize that the reason that they went there was to deposit grandma's ashes.
Ooh.
And I was just like, the first time you get through, it's like, oh, that's sad, but kind of heartwarming. Okay, I get it. That's effective. That one stuck. And then it happened again. And then it happened again. And about 30 minutes through my show, I'm sobbing in the corner, and I hate Volkswagen with every fiber of my being.
So
Wow. Those
I
are the
had-
reasons to hate Volkswagen.
I had
so.
an experience where I was getting served the same ad on Hulu over and over again. And I remember it very clearly because it was a Walmart ad and it was like around fall. So it was kind of like building on a tailgating, get everybody together for a party, watch the game sort of vibe. But they didn't show specific teams. They had people that were wearing, like, one team was a blue team and all their fans were wearing blue. And another
Because
team
they
was another team was an orange team and whoever they were. But they're all gathered around to watch this game, and it drove me crazy that blue and orange would stand up and cheer at the exact same time.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
they wanted to show, like, everybody's having fun at this party. These opposing teams would stand up and cheer. And I was like, it just drove me crazy. And every single time I saw it, I was like, it doesn't make logical sense.
But then they turn around the camera and they were actually cheering at the Walmart commercial. They weren't even watching the game. They were just excited that they saw themselves cheering in an infinite mirror universe of blue and orange.
All right, next time we got a slow news day, we're going to go down the rabbit hole that is bad old commercials. We could spend hours on
I'd
that.
rather talk
Oh,
about
yeah.
good old commercials, though. I was like, that's kind of sick, though, that you have so many nostalgic thoughts about commercials from your childhood.
Oh yeah, they stick. That's what
That's
they're
modern
designed to do.
America for you.
Yeah, no kidding.
Especially now in the holiday season, boy, some of the ones that they've kept alive, like the Hershey's Kisses and Campbell's Soup Snowman and all those that roll
Yeah.
back out this time of year, I still have fond memories of those, and
Oh,
I can
yeah.
deal with them once a year. That's about all I'll give them.
They're so insidiously effective.
I need a bowl of soup now. Hey, we're out of time. Everybody, we got one show left in 2018, and that'll be tomorrow morning at our regularly scheduled time, 11:15 a.m., right here on YouTube live stream and Periscope. Until then, Joan, you want to take us on out of here?
Sure, yeah. The 359 is available on iTunes, TuneIn, FeedBurner, Stitcher, Google Play Music, Google Podcasts, the Amazon Echo, and of course, CNET.com. We'll see you tomorrow.
Take care, folks. Thanks for joining us.